Do you wake from your finest fantasy only to return to your daily nightmare?
Mr. Walker. Yes, Mr. Walker.
Is your mother about to look younger than you do? Does the woman of your dreams
I love you. In my dreams, I love you.
still have a few doubts? Then it's time to take a stand. To break out of your dull, humdrum life and into Brazil.
So pleased you could make it right this way.
It's about flights of fantasy and the nightmare of reality.
We're all in this together.
Terrorist bombings,
I don't think it involves anything unsavory.
You trust me, Jack?
and late-night shopping. True love
You don't trust me?
Trust you? Trust you? The man who hijacks my truck, loses me my job, has every security man in town looking for me? Of course I trust you.
I was only trying to help.
Yeah.
and creative plumbing.
There's a problem. Can you fix it? No, I can't.
From Terry Gilliam, director of Time Bandits, Jonathan Pryce,
Sam, what are we going to do with you?
Robert De Niro,
I came into this game for the action, the excitement. Go anywhere, travel light, get in, get out, wherever there's trouble, a man alone.
Katherine Hellman, and Michael Palin.
We've always been close, haven't we?
Yes, Jack?
Well, until this all blows over, just stay away from me.
Brazil. It's only a state of mind.
We're all in it together, kid.
When twilight dims the sky above, recalling thrills of our love, there's one thing I'm certain of, return I will to old Brazil. Yo!
Bucket Hat Poet.
Party!
Welcome to Movie Uppers. My name is Bob Sham.
My name is Angela.
The sounds you hear may be dogs and the bleak echoing through the chambers of industrial sickness all month long for this theme. Some bullshit tomorrow, in which we're talking about movies of the future, both near and far. Sometimes maybe alternate realities of what seems familiar here. And in today's movie, there's a similarity to RoboCop. This movie came out like 2 years before it, in which there just seems to be this technical industrial mediocrity. In this movie, it's even more of a feast for the eyes. The little gadgets, the tricks. It's just something that this director, our first discussion of this director, has always been very good at. But we are talking about the film Brazil from 1985, directed by Terry Gilliam, written by Terry Gilliam, Tom Stoppard, Charles McCone, and Charles Albertson, starring Jonathan Pryce, Kim Greist, Robert De Niro, Ian Holm, Michael Palin, Bob Hoskins, Katherine Hellman, who's Mona and who's the boss. Cinematography by Roger Pratt.
Gorgeous.
This movie was a hit in England. This is like an England-U.S. co-production, and it didn't quite make the budget in America, but with European success. Another 1984-esque movie. And what's funny is that was the intention of Gilliam to make a 1984-esque movie. I think he was developing this creatively leading up to the actual year of 1984. And of course, someone put out a movie called 1984. Mm-hmm. So he had to change the way he thought about it a little bit. But the 1984-ness is very apparent.
Oh, yes.
But this movie allegedly had a lot of other working titles going on. Titles such as The Ministry, 1984 and a half, which is both a nod to Orwell and Fellini's 8.5. Other titles such as The Ministry of Torture and How I Learned to Live with the System So Far. But Brazil ends up being the working title, Brazil being the only song you really hear in some form or another, a song that has been changed around internationally, a big hit, one of the most famous songs to come out of Brazil, the original version, that was popular enough to be adapted by other singers all over the world. And the song itself seems like this you hear it played throughout these weird, bleak environments. This tether to like a hope and dream. This idea that something is going to be better soon.
That we can all someday be happy again.
Yeah.
It's recognizing we're not currently happy. This is not nice. The song is a character in this movie. When the opening of this movie, playing that song, seeing the clouds, it sets you up as though it is going to be a fun, good time.
Fantastical fantasy.
Yes, it is. It is the fantasy. Brazil is the fantasy. This world could not be farther from
anybody's fantasy.
Anybody's fantasy. It's really well done. I love that aspect to it, especially when we get to the end.
I love how cluttered everything is.
Oh, gosh.
The way this world is. Early on in the movie, we get this family gets busted in on by the authorities, and the father's like a cobbler. It's like Christmas time, and he gets shot. And turns out it's some paperwork error. They thought he was a guy named Tuttle, but he's a guy named Buttle.
He gets taken away. He doesn't get shot immediately. They arrest him, but they figure out that they've messed up. And the whole thing is that because they got the wrong guy, whatever they were making him do, because they torture you, there's these different divisions of this government
ministry of this and that, just
and
like
so
84.
Information retrieval is ostensibly a
torture
torture
department.
unit. He gets tortured. They thought he could handle a certain level that Buttle couldn't handle because he had a pre-existing heart condition. And so they were pushing, they thought, Tuttle to his extremes, and by doing that, they killed Buttle.
A part of the interesting details is when the authorities break in, they cut a hole through the floor. This movie almost feels like a cartoon in so many ways as well. But they cut through the floor and it cuts open. But if you look between the floorboards, you can see just wires and tubes and junk just in the walls of everything.
A commercial we see at the beginning.
I want to talk to you about ducts. Do your ducts seem old-fashioned, out of date? Central Services' new duct designs are now available in hundreds of different colors to suit your individual taste. Hurry now, while stocks last, to your nearest Central Services showroom.
The more we learn about this world, these ducts are everywhere. And it's not only how air is transported, which is how it is in our reality. Paperwork is transported through ducts. Shit is transported through ducts.
Yeah.
Everything is sent around through ducts. And so you also get this feeling, thinking about the 1984, it makes sense because at the time when movies like 1984, books like that were written and conceived of, technology was so new that if you can beam a television show into my house, why can't you watch me in my house from somewhere else? So there's this...
I think what's funny is that Gilliam admitted, at least around this time, that he had never read 1984.
I love it.
But they're movies that are
But
probably
there
much...
are ideas in the zeitgeist, regardless.
It's such a potent piece of cultural thing.
The imagery in Alphaville also.
That you know.
Yes.
You get it. You recognize it, even if you haven't interacted with it directly.
I've
you
never
understand
seen the movie of 1984.
Yeah, there's a few.
But I've read the book.
Apparently they're making a new one with Andrew Garfield right now.
The entire time that we were talking about the movie prior to this, the last episode, if you heard it,
The Trial.
Was The Trial. I kept thinking, were they to remake that now, Andrew Garfield would be the perfect Mr. K. He fits into...
You're saying he's gay.
I mean, he could be gay. He reads gay. Listen,
He
I don't
kinda
know.
has
No
a little-
judgment. But he could play that
He
effeminate... That effeminate...
I think you're onto
live,
something. His
but
overall
girls
look,
want him.
his lankiness.
Yes.
Interesting.
It's so funny that's... Because he does. He makes sense to be sort of a...
You'd be remaking the Orson trial. Like, I think the trial itself has been adapted other people.
Yeah,
but we're talking about
Orson trial.
That spirit of Anthony Perkins. That's what you want to see carried forward.
I think that Andrew Garfield could play a biopic of Anthony Perkins also.
Our lead in this wild visual feast of a movie is played by Jonathan Pryce. Plays Sam Lowry.
Type of guy.
An ill society buried in bureaucracy, late stage capitalism. Consumerism is still a thing. There's one point where Santa's asking a little girl what she wants for Christmas, and she wants a certain type of credit card.
Her own credit card is what she says.
Like, there is still this aspect of consumerism, but it hasn't lent it to bringing any brightness to this world whatsoever.
There is a person at one point because this is a Christmas movie. There's a person at one point carrying a sign that says "Consumers for Jesus."
Yeah.
Or "Consumers for Christ."
In the U.S., that's so close to home.
Absolutely.
This notion, wrapping up your faith into capitalism, into consumerism, and getting all that muddled up together. I mean, if you truly respect religion, you'd want to separate it from that. But too many people who deem themselves faithful cannot help themselves. I mean, we've been propagandized this kind of shit our whole lives.
Yeah.
And the people in this world are under tremendous amounts of propaganda.
I know we could probably talk about this movie forever, but there are moments that really stuck out to me.
And it's important to note, as you mentioned flying at the beginning, that Sam, he gets lost in daydreams or actual dreams, and he envisions himself as this winged warrior who flies through. It's the most colorful parts of the movie. And often he is battling these baby-faced creatures, or perhaps like a steampunk-looking samurai
to save this
specific woman that he's been seeing in his dreams,
with long blonde hair and nipples showing through sheer fabrics.
But Sam, of course, works in this menial, bureaucratic environment.
Yeah.
He's actually a part of the bourgeoisie in the sense that his mother keeps trying to get him in on nepotism.
She
and he
knows
keeps
everybody. We find out later that I didn't recognize her until halfway through the movie because she starts out looking very, very old, because there's this whole thing. So there's the whole thing about information and what is information and what are you trying to get out of people, right? And then there is appearance. There are battling plastic surgeons. There's these two guys, one guy who stretches you, the other guy who puts acid on you. He ends up killing a woman. But every person that you meet, every woman, there is a comment about their appearance.
A very common still from this movie you may see is when Katherine Hellman's character is getting her face stretched as she's having a procedure done
with Mr. Broadbent.
And Ian Holm is this he's scared of his own shadow. He's constantly nervous that his overseers that he will fail or something in his job, and he desperately wants Pryce on because he's doing all the work for him and making him look good.
And he has an entire factory, is how it feels. They're all on computers, but it feels like a factory. Everyone's moving and bustling. He constantly wants to talk to Lowry. He's always calling him into his office. He is desperate that Lowry not ever leave him. And Lowry has turned down promotions that his mom has gotten him in the past. He turns down this newest promotion as well. He goes and sees his mom. He's pissed at her. He says, I am happy where I am. No one wants to believe him that he's happy. But his thing is he doesn't want to get entrenched in all the other bullshit of it. He's found a niche where he's comfortable.
And he can daydream at his desk, and that'll be fine enough for him.
But then he starts getting uncomfortable. So he starts becoming uncomfortable because, first off, his house will not cool down.
He's having issues with his heat, so he contacts the department that
Central Services
that takes care of that. And the man who comes to his house
intercepts the call.
And a man named Harry Tuttle shows up at his house. It's the same name except the last name as the guy who got abducted at the beginning of the movie. And he comes in and he's there and he fixes his heat. He's not really part of the Central Services. And that this guy just goes around like a rogue agent being helpful and helping to repair people's problems.
And when he says to him, well, why don't you just work with Central Services? He says,
This whole system of yours could be on fire, and I couldn't even turn on a kitchen tap without filling out a 27B/6. Bloody paperwork.
I suppose one has to expect a certain amount.
Why? I came into this game for the action, the excitement. Go anywhere, travel light, get in, get out, wherever there's trouble, a man alone. Now they got the whole country sectioned off. You can't make a move without a form.
I don't like paperwork.
And when he leaves, we see him exit the scenes a couple of times, and he zip lines like down into the city. It just looks. I'm not sure. I mean, Terry Gilliam.
Cool.
Terry Gilliam was the American dude in Monty Python. Mm-hmm. He was responsible for a lot of the animations and stuff that we saw in there. This guy is a seasoned. He has his own unique take on visual effects. And there are times throughout this movie that even so many years later, it still looks fucking great.
This movie is beautiful.
And in some respects, you're not even totally sure how he does that.
There is this cartoony aspect to it with the ducks. They seem to be spilling out of the walls, and they're all these different colors, and all these things are happening. Everything's dirty. While Tuttle's there fixing, the two guys from Central Services actually show up.
Bob Hoskins and another guy.
And they're wearing these hats with these brims that are three
really
times
long.
as long as they should be. So there's this cartoonish silliness about them.
It's fixed.
Fixed.
Fix.
Yes, I mean, it, fixed itself.
Oh, it fixed itself.
Fixed itself.
These don't fix themselves.
Well, they don't fix themselves.
He's tampered with it.
I think he's tampered with it, Mr.
Well, sorry you've had a wasted journey.
I think we will have a little look at you.
No, you can't.
Tuttle looks fucking tough and cool as hell, right?
Yeah, he's like dressed like a commando.
And these guys look like toddlers in matching red and white outfits with huge brimmed hats.
But the services guys are the most suspicious and the most like aggressive verbally. They know something's weird here, and they know that somebody's been involved that before that they arrived. Even the fact that they arrived when they did seemed like unexpected, because usually it takes these guys a long time.
He didn't even speak to someone when he called.
And Lowry manages to get rid of them by through technical information means by saying, did you fill out this form, blah, 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 because everything is run through forms. Human beings are in their job position is being described as their like job number as much as their names.
Yeah.
And they're huffy because like, oh, we didn't do the form, so we have to leave.
As the movie progresses and things get crazier and crazier, at one point he does come back to his house, and they're there and they say to him, this is not your house right now.
There's points in which he's at a Christmas party where his mother is at, or they're at shopping centers, and things will explode. And they talk about how there are terrorists about. You think that maybe Robert De Niro's character is a part of this terrorist group. But as far as we know, that's really not the case.
No. He's
just a rogue repairman who wants to be helpful to people.
The best guy in this movie.
But anyone that you actually, I don't recall, do you actually see anyone being a terrorist?
No.
The movie says, the characters say, terrorists did this, terrorists did this. What if something just went wrong? Like the mediocrity of technology and how everything functions. Like it was just an explosion. What if things just explode sometimes and the Ministry of Information that controls information is just telling everyone, oh, that's terrorists again. But the reality is this world is so shitty that sometimes things just explode. It's my theory.
My theory is that they want to create unrest. It is the government that is doing the bombing. And they want to be able to blame it on whoever they want to blame it on. If they do a bomb and then they go and say that Tuttle did that bomb, no one is going to question them. They can just go and take him to the information retrieval and fuck him up until he confesses to all kinds of things. That's their whole thing, because everyone is so used to it. And if you have a level of money like his mom does, when they're having that dinner and it's his mom and her rich friend who's been getting the acid face treatments, that whole thing is fucked. They truly don't even flinch when the bomb goes off. People are dying and injured, and there's like a whole cleanup crew that immediately comes in and starts picking people up. There are always cops immediately there when the bomb goes off. Immediately.
The inside job theory definitely makes a lot of
what I
sense.
think.
I like the that everything sucks theory,
I like
and they're
both.
just covering for themselves. It's
It
pretty
just
good
depends
too.
on how
Everything
it depends
does
on,
suck.
It's all everyone's fucked. It depends on how smart you want to let them be. Like, are they clever enough to do that, or is it unorganized enough that it's just literally falling apart?
Everything is just so cluttered and messy anyway. That's what made me think of that. Lowry catches an image of a woman, and it happens to be the woman that he dreams about. He can't get information to find this woman unless he takes that promotion that he was offered. And he finds out that Ian Holm actually signed paperwork for him on his behalf.
Because he really didn't want him to leave.
But he manages, because his mother is some big socialite, he does manage to get into the department.
And we find out that the man who's in charge of information retrieval department, and ostensibly he could be in charge of multiple of these departments. He's pretty high up, the guy in the wheelchair. He was partners with Lowry's dad.
Yeah.
So that's why his mom has so much influence, is that at some point when Lowry's dad was still alive, he was co-running the show with this guy who's in charge now.
And he has a friend who's played by Michael Palin who works for the information retrieval department. He has to he's sharing this weird office. There's so much. This movie's a visual feast with a lot of little things. Everything is very tongue-in-cheek, bleak but funny, with so much creativity. It is unreal the way Gilliam's mind works.
Absolutely.
Just the way he executes it. It's so unique. You can definitely tell it's him. He does manage to figure out the information on this lady, and they have a refund check for Buttle. And they don't usually give those out, but they overcharged Buttle.
So the thing is, when you are arrested, you owe these people money for having arrested you. And then the longer it takes for them to get information out of you, the more your bill keeps going up and up and up. They make a point at some time, they say, the longer you don't tell us the truth, you're just ruining your credit.
Yeah.
Everything is monetary in this society.
So he brings the check to the widow, who is not very happy, as you can imagine. And they have a little boy who tries to beat him up, which is very funny.
Yes.
But there's still a hole in the ceiling from when the authorities went through. And he looks up, and a woman is seeing if the neighbor's okay. And it's the woman in his dreams, the one he's looking for.
And the reason he saw her at his job is because she is taking it on herself to figure out what the fuck happened to Buttle, because she knows he was a good man.
Right. She's not a part of any opposing force. She's just trying to help her neighbors find peace of mind.
But this is once again a society where if you ask too many questions, you're a terrorist. She's asking too many questions.
And he eventually finds her and catches up to her when she is in some formal office, being frustrating, trying to get some answers, some help. And that's when he takes her and drags her along. She is pretty much wanted for being a nuisance to them at this point. She's very distrustful of him, but she can't fucking get rid of him.
You won't believe this, and I know it's going to sound incredible, but I've been dreaming about you. No, not like that. I mean, I love you. I mean, in my dreams, I love you. And, I mean, extraordinary, isn't it?
And she's trying to get rid of him, but he won't go away.
At one point, he's convinced that she knows Tuttle, but she doesn't. They run across him later, and she asks him, who is that guy?
He starts to lose control of his life because he's on the run. He's focused on pursuing this lady, this vision of this woman who he sees in his most happiest moments when he's asleep.
And all he wants to do is save her.
But he goes back to his apartment at one point, and the guys have completely dismantled it. There's tubes and shit everywhere. And he gets out and he catches Tuttle on the outside, and everything's connected through these tubes. So Tuttle, he's like, shh, and he switches these tubes and puts the sewage pump into their oxygen pumps. And then Bob Hoskins and the other guy, their suits fill up with shit and burst. It's so gross.
It's so gross.
He has an idea how to keep her from being pursued by the authorities. He takes her to his mother's house. She's out of town. It seems like it would be a safe place because she's a well-to-do person. And he asks her to stay there. And then he goes into the offices, and it's a whole rigmarole. We finally figure out that he accesses the information in the high offices and changes her status to
dead.
Deleted.
Yeah,
dead.
deleted.
I think they call it deleted.
You don't exist anymore. I've killed you. Jill Layton is dead.
Care for a little necrophilia?
And then they consummate. She falls for him, but then the authorities come down.
Come through the ceiling again.
They come through the ceiling just like they did last time, and they abduct him, and they point a machine gun at her, and it's off scene, but you can hear gunshots.
Yeah.
They murdered her.
Yeah.
We cut to Lowry, and he's in a torture chair, and a guy in a baby mask comes up, and you know it's Michael Palin.
Which is the same baby faces from his dreams again.
And he is very frustrated because now he has to torture. He's given distance to his friend since he's in so much trouble, but he doesn't want to torture him.
Mad at him for being in so much trouble that he has to torture him.
You stupid bastard. Jack, how could you do this to me?
Jack, I'm frightened.
Oh, how do you think I feel? You shit!
Jack!
Shut up! This is a professional relationship.
The torturing is about to begin when he gets shot in the head, and the opposing forces led by Robert De Niro's Tuttle character
come in from the roof.
There's a big shootout, and he starts to run around, and he ends up going into this building, and the funeral for this lady, friend of his mother's, who they were trying to get to set up with her daughter.
The acid lady.
The acid face lady. She has passed away, and there's a point where he's still being pursued, and he falls through the coffin, and
his mother looks like his girlfriend for a second,
and it
becomes very surreal.
It's very surreal, and you realize that a lot of this probably isn't real, and he makes his escape with Jill Layton is the name of the girl of his dreams.
They're in the cab of her truck once again, and her arms around him.
And it cuts back to him in the torture chair. His old boss and Michael Palin are there, and he is completely gone.
He's gone. Oh.
And that's what they say.
In his fantasy. They tortured him. The pain rendered him into his dream world, which is probably a strange blessing. Like, he has his own matrix that he can plug himself into. So all that's left of him as he's still breathing is just the fantasy world in his head, Brazil. And that's his only escape. This movie is interesting because it's funny at the same time. The shots are great. The sets, the visual pieces, there's so much going on. You can garner so much from this movie on multiple rewatches. And the movie tricks you into thinking it's going to end on something that's going to actually be very optimistic. That there's going to be hope for Lowry, that love is going to conquer here.
It implies that they escape and set up this house and have animals and a garden. Like, it's fully fledged. As far as I'm concerned, paradise. Like, I would love to live there with you. And this place where he now is, but he's trapped inside his mind.
The only paradise he has to settle for, the one that helps him cope with this completely shithole society, is the dream in his head that he can get lost in. Yeah, it's sad, but in a way, the main character is happy in the end, because in his mind, he's in that world, even if he literally is not in that world. And eventually they'll probably just kill him, and he's not dreaming at all. The overall tone, the cartoony nature, the way this movie is set up and how it goes all the way through, it just makes that last bit just gut punch you all that much harder. Pretty devastating.
I feel like I'm going to cry right now. It was very upsetting. Even though it became surreal and fantastical, I wanted it so badly to be real.
And that's Brazil by Terry Gilliam from 1985. We're going to give this one 1 through 5 each combined for best out of 10. When we were watching it, you had some criticisms of how his love interest in him kind of came together.
Oh, she like hated him and then all of a sudden was like, I love you. And it's fine, but
I think that criticism makes sense.
Yeah.
It's something that seems indicative of older movies as well. And it does seem like the influence of classic noir is also in this movie.
Yes.
Especially with the way all of these men dress and stuff like that. But if I'm going to, it's at least a 4.5 for me.
It is at least that for me too.
So we're saying at least Brazil is a solid 9.
Is it an S tier?
I wish I'd seen this when I was younger because I think this movie would have had a very profound effect on me. Gilliam's other films would.
Yeah.
But this one probably would have been even deeper, I'm sure. Gaze upon it. It is now an S tier. Terry Gilliam's Brazil from 1985 rests between Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon and Lars von Trier's Breaking the Waves. It's at least as good as those, if not better. It's been a very critically acclaimed week this week, and Ian Holm will appear again before the end of the week.
Ian Holm is the MVP
of the week.
Of the week. Oh, well, of this month, we'll say.
Sure, why not? And rest in peace, Ian Holm. Check the show notes for links to other places to find us. Like, subscribe. Let us know what you think of Brazil or any Terry Gilliam movie. What did you think of this one? A lot of fun and a lot very devastating at the same time. Some bullshit tomorrow rolls on.
I'll see you tomorrow.
You killed Buttle. What's that? There were very rigid parameters laid down to prevent such things happening. And it wasn't my fault that Buttle's heart condition didn't appear on Tuttle's file. Come on, how are you getting on?
Jack.
I really need to know about Tuttle. Well, we're going to have to bring Mr. Tuttle in, aren't we? And interrogate him at the same voltage as Mr. Buttle. And juggle the books and electrical banking.